The Bournemouth University logo is shown on screen with the text Eating Disorders Awareness Week 2015. Managing eating disorders within a school setting, Bob Hardwick, Deputy Head Teacher of Parkstone Grammar School. This video is part of the Equality and Diversity outreach work being undertaken at BU. The screen is laid out with a video of Bob in the top right hand corner. Underneath this is the Bournemouth University and Parkstone Grammar School logos. To the left are the slides that Bob is referring to. The first slide title is Managing Eating Disorders within a School Setting by Bob Hardwick.
First of all, thank you very much for coming to listen. My name is Bob Hardwick, as James has said. I'm Deputy Head of Parkstone Grammar School in Bournemouth, and I've been a Pastoral Deputy in Bournemouth for about 15 years now. So some experience of pastoral issues and pastoral matters. What I'm going to say today is that, and I'm going to paraphrase it by saying that we don't have all of the answers, and I'm definitely going to say that we certainly don't hold ourselves up as a paragon of virtue in terms of how we deal with things, because certainly over the years certain things have happened, and we have, along the 15-year journey that I've been a pastoral deputy, there have been mistakes, and I'm quite happy to admit that. But we have tried over the last few years to try and improve the way and develop the way in which we have handled mental health issues and eating disorders in particular. I've sort of structured my talk to you in two different parts. It's important for me to set a context to you, first of all, as to the context of the school and the context as far as we understand it in terms of eating disorders. And then from that, to then go on to explain how we feel we handle the issue of eating disorders, and to try and minimise the impact of eating disorders within a school setting that we particularly have. Because I think the context is very, very important. As we know, eating disorders sadly is on the rise. There is no question. In my 15 years as a pastoral deputy, I've seen mental health issues increase significantly within the school and throughout other schools within the borough. And the pressure that mental health services are under within the borough is very, very significant now. There is no denying the fact that mental health services are under very, very severe pressure. And the pressure is coming through more and more frequently as we go through. So what about the context of our particular school? And please don't get me wrong, I'm not holding this up to show how brilliant we are. It's really not that at all.
Slide read context. 11 to 18 secondary school, all girls, 1,250 students, high achieving school. GCSE 65.1 A star, GCSE 88.5% A star to B, A level 70% A star to B, A level 82% A to C.
First of all, we are a secondary school, and that we know from the research that has been done that the average age at which eating disorders tends to appear, the average age is between the ages of 15, 16 and 19 years of age. That tends to be when there is a peak surge in eating disorders. So therefore we have one factor that is significant within the context of our particular school. Secondly, we are all girls. And that is another significant factor in our setting in terms of eating disorders, because from research that's been carried out, we know that experiences of eating disorders tends to be higher amongst girls, females, than it does males. Although having talked to somebody much earlier on this afternoon, I do fear about eating disorders amongst males, and the hidden time bomb that is there amongst males in its existence at the moment. We're a large school. We have 1,250 students, particularly since the age of transfer change last year. So we are a large school. So we have a large number of students who are all girls in a secondary school. And the final factor is that we are a high-achieving academic school. And I'm not putting those figures up for any other reason to demonstrate that we are academically very successful. It tends to be, therefore, that our school can be suggested to be a target school in terms of eating disorders, because there are a series of factors that are in there that would suggest that eating disorders could be quite significant amongst the school population. Could be. In terms of national statistics that I picked out, it sort of tends to follow through that information. 1 in 10 teenage girls suffer from some form of eating disorder. The average age of onset of an eating disorder between 14 and 16. 50 to 80% of young girls fear becoming fat. That's a statistic gained in our school. 50 to 80% of a recent survey that we did into our students, which is quite frightening. In our school alone. That's done across the whole school.
Slide reads, factors that can contribute to eating disorders, psychological factors, low self-esteem, lack of control, perfectionism and depression.
Okay, so if we look at the factors as far as I understand it in terms of eating disorders, the context of our school, if we're looking at the psychological factors, low self-esteem, now you might think, well, actually, students coming to our school wouldn't have low self-esteem. You'd think high-achieving girls, actually, coming to our school, their self-esteem would actually be pretty good. Sadly, in some cases, that is not the case. And the reason for it is that in some cases, their self-esteem takes a knock. It takes a knock because moving from a primary school or a middle school in previous years, where they're seen as a big fish in a relatively small pond, they move into a big pond and they're now a relatively small fish. And we have to work very hard in terms of induction procedures and induction styles and induction methods to overcome some of those issues of self-esteem. When you're also dealing with a limited ability range, those at the very top end are exceedingly bright. I would say that they are far, far brighter than ever I was, am, or ever will be. Now, if you're at the bottom end of that, and you're looking up at the brightest, there's a difficulty there. So we're bound to have some self-esteem issues. A lack of control, that could apply to any school. Teenagers feel pressure, and they feel lack of control in their lives. They have that lack of control. Parents, school, where do they control themselves? Where do they have that lifestyle that allows them to be themselves, that allows them the time, the freedom, the flexibility to be themselves, to make their own decisions? In a society where We are constantly, and I heard the phrase the other day, bubble wrapping our children, taking them to school, bringing them home, taking them to clubs, taking them to activities, constantly shielding them from risk and risk aversion that we have these days. That control is gone for a lot of our teenagers. So, lack of control. For our high-achieving girls, perfectionism. If I tell you that some of our girls will spend hour upon hour doing homework when we explicitly tell them 30 minutes max, and they'll get to the end of a piece of work, they'll make one mistake at the end, they'll rip it all up and start again. One of the factors, depression. I'm not saying that all of our kids suffer from depression, I'm not going to say that. But there is an increase in depression within teenagers, maybe as a result of lack of control.
More text on the side reads, interpersonal factors, difficulty expressing emotions, abuse, bullying, especially overweight issues.
Difficulties in expressing emotions, the interpersonal factors. Kids don't have time to sit back and think about those emotions that are whirling around inside their heads. Being able to think about what's going on in my head. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Instances of abuse and bullying. Only takes one person to say to another teenager in a form room, "You're looking a bit fat these days." Bang. One person. One small word. The word fat. One person can influence.
New slide reads, factors that can contribute to eating disorders, social factors, social media, the perfect body, narrow definitions of beauty, cultural norms valuing people on their physical appearance and not their inequalities.
Then we come on to social factors. I'm not sure whether social factors are flogged too much, but I think they should be. Social media, the perfect body. I don't know how many of you know this statistic, but for girls that look at magazines, I don't know what they are these days. I don't read them, I'm afraid. But any of the teenage magazines that you can think of that you're seeing teenage bedrooms, if you can ever get in them, if you can ever find your way through the mess that they might create. If they spend 60 minutes looking at a teenage magazine, according to one particular statistic I read the other day, then that statistic suggests that it lowers their self-esteem of girls by 80%. 60 minutes.
80.
Don't know how long for, but it has an impact. Because what's being presented to them is the perfect body image. The perfect image, the perfect way to look, the perfect ideal. Our girls are subjected to that all of the time. You see it in the classroom, you see it at lunchtime. The magazines, the photographs, all of the stuff that comes out during lunchtime, during break time, all the time. And the narrow definitions that we have of beauty, what the girls understand of beauty, what is beauty to them. You go and ask them and they'll tell you, and it's not what you think it is. And those cultural norms, what do we value in society these days? We value the celebrity culture. That's what teenagers hold up. They hold up the celebrity culture. What do they want? They want the quick fix. They want their 5 minutes of fame. They want their 5 minutes of being on The Voice, even if they can't sing. They want their 5 minutes in Planet's Got Talent or whatever other reality show that happens to be there. Because we value external. We don't think about internal. We don't think about the values that we may hold, because that's not valued. It's what's in front of us, what we see, our perception.
More text reads, biological factors, genetic considerations, possible biochemical or biological causes.
And then there are biological factors that may come into play. Some genetic considerations. Some of the cases that I've dealt with eating disorders, when we start dealing with those cases, we very often find over a period of months that there's a history of eating disorders within the family. Now, is that genetic? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But there is some evidence to suggest that that may be possible. And there is more recent scientific suggestions to say that there's a possible biochemical link. Possible. Again, I'm not a scientist. I won't bring that to this particular forum.
New slide reads, how to achieve a student's academic potential and maximise the facilitation of their social and emotional well-being.
Okay, so that's the question for us, specifically for our school. How do we achieve the student's academic potential and maximise the facilitation of their social and emotional well-being? That's a conflict for me as a pastoral deputy. How do I make sure that the youngsters in my care, who I want to come into school feeling happy, healthy, content, confident, upright young ladies, how do I want them to be able to be like that and at the same time achieve happily their academic potential? Because I want all of my kids, all 1,250 of them, to come in to be happy, to be confident, to be secure. That's my one aim in my school. And I tell you, it cuts me up every single time when there's a mental health issue, when there's a child abuse case, when there's something that hurts a youngster in my school. It really does, because it's not fair, for whatever reason. So how do I achieve it? I've got a quote for you, okay? I can't pronounce the name of the person who's written it or said it, so I'm not going to quote the name of the person. But this underpins what I think is really, really important. Surely a school is a place where one learns about the totality, the wholeness of life. Academic excellence is necessary, but a school includes much more than that. It is a place where the teacher and the taught explore not only the outer world, the world of knowledge, but also their own thinking, their own behaviour. For me, that's important. It's not just about academic excellence. It's not about targets. It's not about grades. Yes, they're important, but it's about holistic education. So, how do we try and achieve it? And I said right at the beginning, we're not perfect.
New slide reads, curriculum, PSHE planning, Year 7, body image mentors, fashion show bullying, Year 12/11, PSHE peer.
By any stretch of the imagination, we try and do it overtly, and we try and do it covertly. Okay. It's easier to show you the overt stuff, but I'm going to tell you some of the covert stuff later on. This is the overt stuff. We use curriculum time. We use what's called PSHE. And PSHEs, for those of you that aren't aware, is personal, social, and health education. The students have, in each year group, have 1 hour per fortnight on their timetable where they are delivered personal, social, health education. Part of it is compulsory, all of the sex education stuff that we have to do, which the government tells us to do. Okay. But some of it is through our own design, and it's worked on a spiral curriculum. So in other words, what we try and do is we introduce things in a very gentle, straightforward way in year 7, and we gradually build and develop to more complex, more difficult, and more harsh things as the year progresses. It becomes more difficult, it becomes conceptually more difficult, and it also becomes much more thought-provoking as the year develops, or as the years develop. Our Year 7 curriculum, we also use what are called Year 12 and Year 11 PSHE peer mentors. Now these are students from Year 12 and from Year 11 that assist our teachers in the classroom. And what we found with our peer mentors, we fully train them, they don't go in straight away, they have full safeguarding training, and they have training in how to question, how to deliver lessons, how to work in group work situations. Because all of our PSHE program is evaluated, not by our staff, but by our students. Our students will evaluate each lesson that is delivered within the PSHE program. And they evaluate it anonymously via our intranet. There is a feedback button on our intranet for each PSHE lesson for each tutor group. And the teacher will ask 2 students at random to come up at the end of the lesson or in a subsequent tutor group lesson to say, will you give some feedback on what you've just, on the PSHE session that you've just done? And it comes in a feedback thread back to me as a PSHE coordinator, so that I know what they thought about that particular lesson, what they thought about the content, what they thought about the ideas and the delivery. And one of the things that the students said, particularly in Year 7 and in Year 8, 2 years ago, was that they said that they would like to talk to older students about things that they felt uncomfortable talking to members of staff about. And so we decided that we would introduce and train students from 12 and from 11 to go in and do small group work with those Year 7 and Year 8 students, so that they could actually talk without being concerned about having to talk with members of staff in front of the whole group or whatever else. And it's been very, very successful. It's been very beneficial on a two-way basis, both from the youngsters in Year 7 and 8 and also from the peer mentors themselves, because they've actually got a lot out of it. Now, you may say, well, what's this got to do with eating disorders? Okay, it's got a lot to do with eating disorders, because what the evaluation also said 2 to 3 years ago was that the students wanted, all of the students in all year groups wanted a lot more information on mental health issues in every single year group. They said, we've had enough of road safety and red squirrel or whatever it used to be, green man or whatever. We don't want that. We don't want any of this. We want mental health. And we want to know. So, okay, so how do we devise a curriculum, a spiral curriculum, which enables us to deal with eating disorders? And we've introduced a series of lessons into our PSHE which help us to get students thinking about eating disorders and be able to begin to be aware of the issues surrounding eating disorders. So we do something on body image. We have a fashion show, which is a positive fashion show, displaying a positive body image. And all of our Year 7s go on a fashion show. They have to design their own clothes, and it has to be a positive presentation of positive body image. And we also run a session, particularly on bullying, around issues of fatness.
More text on slide Year 8, Emotional Wellbeing, Healthy Eating, Mindfulness 1, SEAL ×3, Mindfulness 2.
In Year 8, we introduce the idea of healthy eating. We also introduce a topic called SEAL. And if you've not heard of SEAL, it's not about clapping, but it's about social, emotional aspects of learning. And again, about relationships. But one of the things that we've introduced for this year is a course on mindfulness. And if you're aware of mindfulness, mindfulness is the idea of giving students the time and space to be able to think about their emotions. So we're developing the skills of mindfulness amongst our students so that they're able to relax, de-stress, and they actually have 2 sessions where they're developing the skills of being able to get out of the rat race of lesson time and be able to develop those skills of being able to becoming mind and in being, so that they're being able to think about their own emotions and being able to interpret those emotions. Because very often, if you remember back through the slides, one of the things I was talking about was teenagers' inability to be able to think through their own emotions. And we need to give time and space for those students to be able to think through those emotions and to be able to interpret